going on between the Fed. Again, I got to bring up a great short read that talks about what a scam the Fed is, and I'm no conspiracy theorist here as I play the Twin Peaks theme. Pulled that one out, didn't I?
That is pretty
That's pretty good.
smooth.
There you go, man. Creature from Jekyll Island would be the name of the book that you should read.
So you want to know the tale of the creature from Jekyll Island, do ya?
Perfect, I got this one, Sully. The book, published in 1994 by J. Edward Griffin, uncovers the secret history of the United States Federal Reserve System. Our journey starts in 1910, when a group of powerful bankers meet in secret on Jekyll Island just off the coast of Georgia to draft a plan for a central banking system in the United States. The group included men like J.P. Morgan, Paul Warburg, Senator Nelson Aldrich, which, a fun fact, was John D. Rockefeller's father-in-law, talk about nepotism, spent a week in secrecy discussing their plan, which would eventually become the Federal Reserve. They went disguised as duck hunters in secrecy so that they wouldn't face scrutiny from the press or the public. But really, who'd have a problem with a bunch of bankers coming up with the rules for central banking?
Look, Remy, let's just forget about last night, okay? There's just too much possibility for conflict of interest.
Oh. The name of their game is bailout. The Federal Reserve was created to address a bunch of financial panics that occurred during the 19th and 20th century. You see, the Fed was designed to be a lender of last resort, so to speak. However, the Fed's ability to bail out banks leads us to a moral hazard, where banks take on unnecessarily big risks, knowing that they're going to have a bailout if anything goes wrong. Now, the Fed was originally created as protectors of the public, protecting it from financial instability and inflation, including the Great Depression, the inflation of the 1970s, and who could forget that good old 2008 financial crisis and the Great Recession. Doing great, guys. In the early years, the Fed focused on stabilizing the banking system and preventing any more bank failures. But then later, the Fed shifted its focus to controlling the economy through monetary policies, such as controlling factors like the money supply and interest rates. Sound familiar? Now, the money supply, how do you just make money? That's where they came up with the Mandrake Mechanism, which pretty much means banks are only required to hold a fraction of their deposits in reserve. The rest of the deposits can be loaned out, creating new money in the process.
So let's talk about the creature that exists today.
The Fed's policies have a significant impact on inflation, employment, and economic growth. However, the Fed's independence and lack of accountability to Americans give off huge vibes of concern about its power and influence. The creature from Jekyll Island essentially argues that the Federal Reserve has been nothing but a disaster for the U.S. economy, leading to inflation, financial instability, and government debt. It suggests that a return to the gold standard and a free market approach would probably be a better alternative to the current system. Ultimately, it's a call to action for Americans to take control of their monetary system and demand more transparency and accountability from their government. All right, back to Sully and the beef stew guy.
It's just like that. The employees are listening. Yes. I know that James and Trace will buy that. Mark will critique me on it. Brian Jordan just don't care. Big Biz Show. Great to have you along today. 100 million broadcast television homes strong. 150 radio stations in 175 countries. Sully here, Costa there, the Day Trader Trio. And of course, Dr. Devon Doan, Digital Dude. Yeah. Hey. Amazing. D5. Dr. Devon Doan, Digital Dude. Yeah. There you go. We got an email from one of you, I think it was a television audience member from across the country, about a company called Dakota Territory Resources Corp. It's interesting because we've talked about the Bakken oil fields in the Dakotas. We've talked about oil and gas. We've talked about everything except for mining in the gold universe.
Right.
So exploration, whether it's gold or oil and gas or even technology, makes us happy here. So since we get to interview all types, we get to interview a CEO today. His name is Jonathan Odd. He is the president and CEO of Dakota Territory Resources Corp. They are publicly traded under the stock symbol DC. You can go to dakotatrc.com to find out more information. Here he is via Skype or Zoom or some technology. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Hey, listen, I've got to ask you, when you talk about opportunities in the Dakotas, okay? Listen, I'm not just talking about specifically Dakotas, across the country though. When we're talking about exploration resources and we're talking about opportunities in your space, you guys are getting popular again because this is a cyclical business in terms of investors. Investors love you, then they don't love you, then they love you again. We're back to investors love you again. Talk about that a little bit, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think in 2022 you saw record physical buying by central banks, and the Fed at the start of 2022 rates were near zero, as you talked about in the early part of your show, and they're now 4.5 to 5%. So gold actually performed very well in every other currency with the exception of the U.S. dollar. However, that record physical buying didn't necessarily translate into money flowing into the gold funds. So I think it's an excellent opportunity, an excellent industry to be looking at, because while there might be some short-term headwinds in front of the space in the industry, I think long-term the fundamentals are firmly in place for the sector to be more relevant and to be more at the forefront of where investors want to potentially park some money.
Jonathan, you've been in the gold business for a ton of years. Talk about why now versus, because I've seen gold go through, as I said, iterations of popularity and then sort of, well, it's not really a hedge for inflation. Oh, it's the best hedge against inflation. Talk about why now, because there really is a resurgence. It's almost like, remember the dot-com bubble hit in the year 2000? And then it came back with a vengeance, and the internet suddenly was everywhere, and it was everything, and it was everything it was promised to be. I feel like gold is about the same way right now. It went out of fashion for a minute. Why now, though? What do you think? Is it because of the economic conditions right now?
Yeah, so when you look at how gold performed relative to what the Fed was doing last year with hiking rates, and we're still in this hiking cycle, it held in relatively well. So at some point, the Fed will likely have to pivot, and this is my opinion, but rates are 4.5%, 5%, and the U.S. is approaching now almost $2 trillion a year just to service their debt.
That's
so
crazy.
$2 trillion a year, all but bigger than 15 countries in the world.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable long term. So I think at some point, whether that's 6 months away or a year away, when the Fed does pivot, in my opinion, you will see an explosive move in the gold price, and therefore some of these gold equities will be 1, 2, 3, 4x higher from where they are today.
To your point, if you just look at usdebtclock.org, which I don't recommend you do, but I want you. But we're going to put up there for you here on the screen in just a minute. usdebtclock.org looks like a speedometer.
Yeah.
When you talk about debt per U.S. citizen, debt per voter. And everything. So do you guys have that back there? Jared Coleman out there seeking it right now, usdebtclock.org. I guess the website, everyboody on it. It's like the website, there it is. If you look at it closely, the $31.5 trillion in U.S. national debt, if you look very closely, it is just spinning like a speedometer. The per citizen dollar amount is $94,000 per citizen to pay it off, but per voter, $250,000 per person.
Avert your eyes, children. It may take other forms.
Yeah, I'm not gonna let you. Hey, Jonathan, talk about your company. Let's talk about what you guys do. Let's take because first of all, I'm going to tell you right now, you're coming back on the air with us because I like the fact that you're an expert in this business. What do you guys do there at Dakota Territory Resources?
Yeah, so just real quick, so we are a South Dakota focused gold and exploration company with a very specific focus of revitalizing the Homestake District. So for those that don't know, the Homestake District in Leeds, South Dakota, which is where the Netflix series Deadwood was filmed.
Sure, love it.
Was one of the most important and relevant gold districts, not just in the U.S., but in the world. It produced 40 million ounces of gold over a 125-year period. And we have revitalizing the district. We've consolidated a huge chunk of land. We've done several deals with Barrick Gold. That's the second largest producer in the world behind Newmont. They bought Homestake Mining in 2001, but they acquired Homestake for other assets and projects that Homestake had in their portfolio. So the mine has been shut down for almost 20 years.
DC's a stock symbol. Hey, listen, we want to get you back. We're a little short on time, but in the next 30 seconds, I want you to tell us what you're looking most forward to for 2023 here for Dakota Territory.
Well, a lot of things, but if I was to really narrow down and talk about one or two things, we announced a discovery a few weeks ago with our drilling on one of our projects called Maitland, and we called it the Unionville discovery because it was actually the name of the original claim back in the late 1800s. So we're really excited about expanding this discovery. We're drilling it off right now. We've got 4 drill rigs turning, and then we're also drilling our Richmond Hill project that we picked up from Barrick. and we're moving towards converting.
You're busy, Jonathan. Will you come back with us even though you're so busy? I'd love to have you back as our gold expert. Come on, man. Commit to it on national TV. All right, he's done. He did it. He said he is. Now he's got a new job. He's got a third job. Jonathan, thank you, pal. Jonathan Ott, President and CEO, Dakota Territory Resources Corporation, stock symbol DC. Speaking of DC, here's the DTC. Much more Big Biz coming up.